Welcome to the Library Connection. I'm Tracy Thomas, Assistant Director at the B.B. Comer Library, and I just want to thank you again for joining us today for the Library Connection. It's always just a joy to get to do this with you each week and get to bring you information about people in our community that are beneficial to the library and helping us promote our mission to provide education, enrichment, and entertainment to the people in Sylacauga. And we also appreciate TV 47 so much for allowing us this time with you. Today we have a really great program. The faces that you're going to see are probably not strangers to you if you've lived in Sylacauga any time. Today we have with us Lindsay Kissic, who is a third grade reading teacher at Pinecrest Elementary, and we have Kate Barton, who is a Title I reading teacher. I guess is it reading teacher?
Reading.
Just Title I coach, reading teacher. Wasn't sure the correct title on that. So these two ladies are with us today, and they're going to talk about some things that's dear to our heart at the library, of course, and that is just encouraging children to read. We all know the importance, and it ties back into some basic things about functional literacy. You know, can you just, when you're traveling, can you read the signs that you pass on the road? You know, can you pick up your medicine bottle and read the label? Those are all skills that we all have to have, and we know that the foundation for those skills occurs right where you have them now. So we're going to talk about that today, but before we get started, I want to let people know who you are. So Lindsay, introduce yourself for us.
I'm Lindsay Kissic, and I've been teaching at Pinecrest for 11 years, and I'm a third grade reading teacher.
I'm Kate Barton. I am new to Pinecrest this year, and I previously taught at Nichols-Lawson Middle School. My husband and I moved here in 2012, so we are new-ish to Sylacauga, but not new to the system.
So Kate's a transplant, and we're glad to have her here, and we're so glad that Lindsay could be on with us today too, because she's a familiar face around town.
Glad to be here.
I thought we would just start out today by talking about the importance of reading. People think, oh, I know it's important to read, but do you really? I mean, with the skills that kids have to learn in school today, reading is not just one period in the day. Reading covers all the way across the board, across all curriculums. So let's talk a little bit about why it's important for a kid to have good reading skills.
Well, just, with our third graders, we tell them that reading opens the door for everything. I mean, whether they're doing math or writing, it's just an essential tool that they're going to have for the rest of their life. And we want them to be successful and not just read to be reading, but to learn how to love reading and how they can learn from what they're reading.
And Kate, I know that I've seen before, because you and I actually worked together for a while at Nichols-Lawson, and I've seen before how self-esteem plays into that too.
Absolutely.
If a child is not a good reader. So do you want to address that just a little bit?
Right, and because reading serves you across all areas of your life, when you are not a successful reader, sometimes it does affect your self-esteem, especially in the classroom. And as students get older, it tends to affect them more.
And two, I know another big thing with education today is the kids have to be able to test well at the end of the year, and reading is a big part of that. So, I mean, even the math problems have, written sentences that they have to be able to read. So I know that is a driving factor behind a lot of things that are taught in the schools. One of the things that we see at the library is parents will come in and they'll say, I just ran in for a minute. I need to run in and grab some books for my child. But sometimes it's not quite that easy. Sometimes you need to put some thought into it. And that's why I want you to talk about the importance of choosing the right thing for your child to read. Because we all know that if your child has a bad experience with reading, that's what they will always associate it with. So I thought, today we would just start off just showing some of the formats of books and sort of the evolution from a beginning reader to somebody who can pick up a chapter book and read. So Kate, we'll start with you.
Yes, so to begin your child's reading experience, you should start with a picture book. A picture book is a book that has very few words per page, large colorful pictures to attract their attention. This is a book that at first would be a great read aloud for you to read to your child, and they could progress to reading this independently. Once your child has conquered the picture book independently and with your assistance, you can move into a leveled reader. And the leveled reader is a very early beginning chapter book. These start even below level 3, as this one is with a level 1, with even fewer words per page, and work into a more familiar format, introducing them to a chapter book.
And moving from the book that Kate just showed you, this is also a beginning chapter book, but you can see the text is becoming a lot longer. The words are getting larger. There are still some illustrations, but they're not as prevalent as in the beginning chapter book. So, and then we have this next chapter book. It's on the same level as the beginning, but you can see that your margins are getting much larger. The text is covering most of the page, and you don't see many pictures or illustrations. And of course, you want to pay attention to the levels because there's so much power in this sticker right here. A level 4.4, if your child has never read a beginning chapter book, you would want to encourage them to start here, because even though this is on the same level, it might be overwhelming because it has less pictures that they're used to. So knowing the power of that sticker, and I think Kate's is like a 2.5.
2.5, and this one's a 1.5.
And a 1.5. And I know BB Commer Library is great about labeling all the books so parents can pick out the just right books for their child.
I'm glad you pointed the labels out, because that is, if you don't have a child or a grandchild or some child that you've had to bring to the library, or maybe you haven't heard about it from school, but it's a program called the Accelerated Reader Program. And a lot of schools in our area do utilize the Accelerated Reader Program. And so when we come back from our break, we're going to talk just a little bit more about that.
Hi, it's Shawnee McNeil at South First Bank. This is a great time for you to buy or build a new home, or maybe refinance your present mortgage. Our rates are the lowest they've been in years, and that means saving you money. We've been helping our customers become homeowners in this area for nearly 70 years, and we can make our approvals right here in the office, and that means saving you time. We're located here in downtown Sylacauga. Come in and find South First, a better way to bank.
Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
At Marble City Pharmacy, we're more than just a drugstore. Our gift shop boasts some of the most unique treasures you'll find anywhere. Come in and browse the vast selection of jewelry, purses, clothing accessories, and crafts. Let our friendly staff help you find that special card or gift for any occasion. Our dollar wall features selected sale items, and we stock a wide variety of specialty items. And if it is a drugstore you need, Marble City Pharmacy was named the 2015 McKesson National Pharmacy of the Year. Visit us today at Marble City Pharmacy.
Camping World, the #1 RV and camping expert, would like to introduce you to a whole new world. Say hello to new thrills. Get to know your crew. Moments become great memories. Take a new look. Enjoy freedom. Discover amazing. Say hello to a whole new world. Visit campingworld.com.
The Allen Companies of Sylacauga, with 3 locations to serve you: Highway 511, Highway 280, and Main Avenue. For all your convenience store needs, ice, drinks, snacks, and of course, some of the lowest priced gasoline at the pumps. It's the Allen Companies of Sylacauga. Highway 511, Highway 280, and Main Avenue. It's the Allen Company Convenience Stores.
Welcome back to the Library Connection. I'm Tracy Thomas, Assistant Director at the BB Commer Library, and today we're talking with Kate Barton and with Lindsay Kissic, and they are teachers at Pinecrest Elementary. Kate is Title I and Lindsay is a 3rd grade reading teacher. And before the break, we were talking about choosing the right format book for your child, because it's just really important that your child have a good first experience with reading, because something that we've talked about and we all see it and we all know it, and I'm a parent, so I'm not going to say I've never been guilty of it, is that sometimes parents use reading as a punishment. They will say things to their kids like, you can't go outside and play until you get that book read. So that's one of the things we were saying, is that the reading experience should always be cast in a positive light.
Right.
So in order to make that first reading experience good, it's important to be able to choose the right book. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about formats. We know that we go from an easy picture book and we advance up, You begin to get more words on the page. You begin to get fewer illustrations. The margins on the page begin to get smaller. So you're just working kids out of the pictures into full text. And then one of the things that Lindsay mentioned before the break was just the power in the sticker that's on the side of the book, because that is a reading level. So that is indicative of a program called Accelerated Reader. You've probably heard of that before if you have a child that's passed through school in the last 10, 12 years probably. But I want you to talk about the power of the reading level, even if your school doesn't participate in Accelerated Reader, or maybe if they do it a little different than some other schools do.
Right, because this sticker is so helpful for AR, but I know as a parent, I just need to know where to go to find that just right book for my children. I have 2 boys, and of course, we visit the library frequently, and I look at stickers, and my son knows what level, because we want to make sure we get a book that's not too hard, it's not too easy. We call that the Goldilocks test. We want a just right book. And if you don't know your child's reading level, you can talk to their teacher, and they can happily provide you that information. They would love to if you don't understand what kind of level your child should be reading. But there's just so much power in this sticker. You wouldn't want, just because the sticker starts with a 4 and you think 4th grade, but if your child's a struggling 4th grade reader, you wouldn't want to pick up a book like this to try to help them. You want to find something that's appropriate for them. They may be a 4th grade reader, but they may need a level 2 or a level 3 book. Or the opposite. Sometimes we have, you may have a 2nd grader who's ready for this. So knowing where your child is with their reading ability is going to help you pick out that just right book.
Yes, and your child actually isn't going to be on a reading range, so you're not going to be limited at the library to a certain number, a 2.5. Your child's going to receive a reading range from his or her teacher that is going to give you a plethora of books to choose from at the library.
So that's a good point, Kate. Talk about how that reading range is assigned, because I think a lot of people look at it and say, well, I don't really understand why it's this to this. So talk about the assessment that actually helps a child know where they fall on that range.
Sure. At Pinecrest, and I know at several schools in our community, an assessment's given called Star Reading, and it's a computer adaptive test, meaning that as a student gets questions correct, it gets more and more difficult, and if they get a question incorrect, it makes the test easier. Mm-hmm. And when a child is answering 80% of the questions correct, it finds the child's level, and it will tell the teacher, this student is reading from a 2.5 to a 4, or can even hone it down lower to a lower range, the lower the reading level.
Okay, so how often is a child assessed? And I know that it's different from school to school, so we're just talking about in general, how is your child assessed? One time at the beginning of the year and then one time at the end of the year, or do they have some that fall along in there?
I can speak to Pinecrest, and at Pinecrest we have 3 benchmark assessments, one beginning of year, one middle of year, one to end of year. And then our students are also progress monitored once a month. Now, our struggling readers or students who receive intervention services do progress monitor more frequently so that we can adjust their instruction, because we use STAR as an instructional tool to make our choices in our classroom.
Now, I know, too, at the different schools, Accelerated Reader is administered a little bit different. I know back in the early days of Accelerated Reader, they used to have like prizes that if you reached a certain level or if you benchmark, whatever the goal was for that student, they could go and choose a prize out of the basket. And then at some schools, Accelerated Reader is actually done as a grade. So talk about the different ways that schools kind of motivate students with the Accelerated Reader program.
Well, we give a celebration, or we have a celebration every 9 weeks. So it's a short-term goal to motivate the students. We had a DJ come at the end of 9 weeks, and students were invited to participate if they had met their goal and maintained an 80% average or higher, because of course we don't want them to just be taking the test. We want them to show us that they're comprehending the text. So we do short-term goals and have celebrations, and in the past, we've had like a big end-of-the-year celebration for those students that have met their goal each 9 weeks. So.
Yeah. And those students are also recognized at our PBIS assemblies. Once every 9 weeks, they receive a bracelet if they made their AR goal. We've had whole classrooms make their AR goal, and it's very encouraging to see the students get so excited about reading when it's something as simple as a bracelet reward. I wish we could see if the reward was even greater, how much motivation we would have.
I mean, because y'all know how important it is to be included in the pizza party or the party with the DJ. That's big stuff. So I think it's great that we're teaching kids that there's positive rewards associated with reading. Now, Lindsay, one of the things that you brought up, and I think that it's very important to mention, is talking about that this is a 4.4 book and this is a 4.4 book.
Right.
But all 4.4 level books are not created equal. And sometimes the divider between those books might be the subject matter. Because we know that once a student can fluently read a book and comprehend it, there's a point where the reading level caps off. So that's where we talk about high-low readers. And we're going to explain that in just a minute when we come back from this break.
Hi, it's Shawnee McNeil at South First Bank. This is a great time for you to buy or build a new home, or maybe refinance your present mortgage. Our rates are the lowest they've been in years, and that means saving you money. We've been helping our customers become homeowners in this area for nearly 70 years, and we can make our approvals right here in the office, and that means saving you time. We're located here in downtown Sylacauga. Come in and find South First, a better way to bank.
Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
At Fort Williams Pharmacy, you won't find motor oil, garden hoses, or mountain climbing gear. Nope, they don't have that. What they do have is a professional, friendly staff that understands your needs. Filling prescriptions is their primary business, and they take it seriously. They also have a drive-through window for your convenience and free local delivery. Most of all, Fort Williams Pharmacy knows your time is valuable, so when it's time to fill your prescriptions, you need it done fast, friendly, and accurately. Fort Williams Pharmacy, our family, caring for your family.
Camping World, the #1 RV and camping expert, would like to introduce you to a whole new world. Say hello to new thrills. Get to know your crew. Moments become great memories. Take a new look. Enjoy freedom. Discover amazing. Say hello to a whole new world. Visit campingworld.com.
Huddle up and huddle in to the newly renovated, family-friendly, smoke-free Huddle House. Stop by and enjoy our new updated look on Highway 280 in Sylacauga. We have the same great food, and as always, you can enjoy any meal anytime, from breakfast to lunch to dinner, or even a midnight snack. Add one of our signature waffles to your meal for that ultimate dining experience.
Huddle up and huddle in.
That's right, ladies. Freshly remodeled and smoke-free, any meal anytime. Highway 280 in Sylacauga, it's the Huddle House.
Welcome back to the Library Connection. Today we're talking with Kate Barton and Lindsay Kissic, and they are two teachers who have a big focus on reading at Pinecrest Elementary School, and we're getting some really good information today. And we were talking before the break about the importance of knowing your child's reading level, and it brought up a good point about interest versus reading level. So why don't you address that, Lindsay?
Right. I mean, with students and, at home as a parent, you don't want to just have your child reading books, even if it's on their level. You want them reading and enjoying books that are on subjects that they're interested in. I know for my students in 3rd grade, a lot of them asked for drones for Christmas. So when I found a passage about how to stop poachers in Africa using drones, I had no trouble getting them to read that. They loved it. So when I take my son to the B.B. Calmer Library, we find dirt bike books and four-wheeler books and things that he's going to want to read. And I think that's just so important because that develops that love for literacy. So.
Now, there is a student, of course, as they get older, we talked about how self-esteem plays into reading, and if you're not a good reader, that's especially sensitive. Right. So talk about choosing a book that has the appropriate reading level with the appropriate content. Because I think people hear the term, high-low readers, but don't really understand what they are. So, Kate, I know you work with that some.
Sure. When I was at the middle school, one of the biggest challenges was finding a book that a middle school student would be interested in, but yet as a struggling reader could be successful with independently. And we call those high-low readers, and what that means is high interest, low level. And it doesn't necessarily mean low, pre-primary to first grade. It means where a book would be written on a topic that a middle school student would enjoy, but it might be written at a 4th or a 5th or a 6th grade level, depending on which grade level you're talking about.
So if you're a 7th or 8th grader and you're reading at a 3rd or 4th grade level, you don't want to be caught carrying a book like that around in the halls. Of course, that's, especially hurtful to your self-esteem. And you want to carry something around that looks more like this chapter book. So to find something that the interest level matches the reading level, we have to do our homework and search those books out and find the right ones. So a lot of times we see parents come in the library, and I know that you probably experience the same thing when you're talking to parents at school, but they're trying to find something for their child, and they just pick one up and they say, okay, here, read this one. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about a couple of tests that you might do with your students to make sure that you've matched them with the right book.
A couple of easy tools for a parent would be to do the Goldilocks test, and just to think about, if they're in 2nd grade and they're a decent reader, you of course wouldn't want to read Humpty Dumpty 100 times. You want to make sure that you're reading what's appropriate for them. So staying with that Goldilocks book, and then also if you're starting a chapter book and you're just not quite sure, or any book, if your child's ready, you could do the 5-finger test and have them read a page to you. Just pick one, and each time they miss a word, just put a finger down, and then by the end of that page, if they're out of fingers, that might be a text that's too difficult for them to read.
And that's a pretty simple test that just about anybody could do to make sure that book's somewhat appropriate for that child. Now, I do know that there is a phenomenon that we call summer slide. And if you're not familiar with that, it is where a child's skills begin to regress some in the summer. For some kids, it regresses a lot. So talk to us a little bit about summer slide and what you see if a child is not maintaining their reading skills during the summer.
Go ahead.
So, summer slide, it happens to the best of readers. It happens to our struggling readers sometimes more than it does our more developed readers. And that's when at the end of the year a student may have been reading at a 4.4, and when they return to us they have lost some of that fluency, or they've lost some of their comprehension strategies, and they may be reading at a little bit lower level. There are so many ways to prevent summer slide at home that it doesn't take an education degree to accomplish. Spending time reading with your child each day, from the simplest thing as the cereal box on the breakfast table to going to the BB Comer Library and choosing an appropriate book for your child. We send home parent reports from STAR at the end of the school year with their final report card, and at the bottom of the parent report it shows their reading level. So they come home with an appropriate reading level, and if they spend enough time in the text, then when they return to school they'll have a lot easier time jumping right back in.
Now, one of the things that we know about the research into summer slide is they talk about that it's a phenomenon that happens a lot more frequently with children from low-income homes, because the idea is they don't really have access to reading materials, books at home like some other students might. But that's one of the things we always say is that the library helps so much with that during the summer, because we provide summer reading programs where you bring in an enrichment program or some form of entertainment. And you guys pretty much do that all during the school year. We're finding ways to connect books to different subjects that we're bringing in and putting in front of the kids during the summer to get them excited about reading, but you're doing that all during the school year.
Right.
So if you have a science lesson on plants, what do?
Reading.
You're reading, So, one of the things that I see a lot at the library is we'll have people who are on up in age come in the library, and they're so sharp. Their mind is so sharp. And they're readers. They've been reading all their life. And my grandfather is 91, and he would sit at the kitchen table every morning and read his newspaper and he would read his, do his find a word, his word search puzzles. And I just believe that, and the research shows that putting words in front of your eyes stimulates your brain in a certain way. And so I admire y'all for what you do, but let's talk just a little bit about some of the statistics about what reading just even an extra 10 minutes a day might do for you.
Well, I'm familiar with the 15 minutes a night and how it exposes students to over 1 million words a year, just reading 15 words a minute. And I know our teachers have had a lot of conversation about promoting nightly reading in their class, not as a grade, but just as a way to get them exposed to those words. So students are reading in the summer, that's helping them gain those words. And there's a direct correlation to like standardized testing. So I think the 20-minute a night.
Right, and to put that in perspective, when a child reads as few as 5 to 10 minutes, you're talking more like 8 to 15,000 words as compared to 1 million. So you can see where just that little bit of a difference, makes such a huge difference in the long term.
And I think it's really important to note that you don't have to have your child sit down and, read a chapter book all the way through. You can actually throw out some magazines, like you said, something on dirt bike riding. We have a subscription to the dirt bike magazines because, you try to find something that your child is interested in, and it doesn't have to be a chapter book. Put some type of literature in front of them. Which it brings us to another good point about comprehension and fluency. We have a couple of minutes left, so let's talk about comprehension and fluency, what that matters, how that matters in what they're reading.
Well, comprehension is understanding the text that you're reading, and if you've read a text but yet you don't understand it, what's the point in reading it in the first place? And as a student develops those comprehension strategies, they become more successful in the classroom across all all curriculum areas, because like we said earlier with our standardized testing, you read in every subject area in some way, shape, or form. So comprehension strategies that you can do at home with your student would be questioning, avoiding yes or no questions when asking the students about the text that they're reading, asking them to make predictions. What do you think is going to happen next? That requires no preparation. Listen to them read, ask them questions about what they've just read, avoiding yes or no questions, encouraging to think deeper about the text. Those are all things that would increase a student's comprehension.
Well, and we know too, the brain is a muscle, and the more that you use it, the better it gets. So is fluency one of those things that repetitive is going to make that?
Right. Fluency is kind of that stepping stone to get to the comprehension that Kate was talking about. If they're not a fluent reader, then chances are they're not going to be able to read something and tell you about it. So, and that goes back to the power of that sticker, because if they're reading and practicing things that are in that zone of proximal development, then that's going to build that fluency, and then that's going to lead to the comprehension.
Right.
So.
And speaking back to your fluency, when we do intervention in our classrooms, we have a framework that we follow, and the very first part of that is rereading familiar text. And we may reread a familiar text 3, 4, 5 times, but that's what increases their fluency, is 4 to 5 times exposure.
Thank y'all so much. You've given us some great information, and thank you so much for joining us today.